the Chancellor of the University of Education, Winneba, Nei Gati, Vice Chancellor, Principal Officers of the University, distinguished guest speaker, representative of the Minister for Education, my dear friend, Dr. Clement Apak, Deputy Minister for Education, staff of the university, students, ladies and gentlemen. You all agree with me that we've had a very academic lecture by Dr. Samuel Granting Pipim, clearly indicating the failures of our educational system and highlighting some of the new developments that are coming up. And we had a passionate exposure by PLO Lumumba. Thank you very much. For me, as an avowed Nkrumahist, I stand tall today. And this is a gentleman from Kenya, stolen. That is why they said a prophet is not honored in his own country. Ghana is 68 years. And yet, I don't believe any of the universities have a course on Kwame Nkrumah. Go to Stanford University, they run programs on Kwame Nkrumah. 16 of Kwame Nkrumah's books are not mandatory reading in any university in this country. And we believe we're going to go forward. But ladies and gentlemen, I want to go back and begin to tease what the problem is and what the likely outcome of this public lecture is going to be. Research abounds that children born should be educated at home with their mother tongue and in school with their mother tongue. The research even says that up to probably the age of 8, and therefore in Ghana's school system, class 1 at 6, 7, 8. Class 3, you start introducing English as a second language. What that does for you is that every word that the child knows in the mother language immediately gets translated into English. If I ask all of you here, what is your vocabulary? All right? What numbers can you give me? This morning in the conference room, I said that in 2002 or 2001, when the Kufuor government came in, the first Minister for Education was Professor Christopher Ameyaw-Kumfi. I met him, and he comes from a tradition that believes that English should be the medium of training right from, age 1. So I said, my primary school teacher's vocabulary was 40. And 40 included 2-letter words and 3-letter words. How much of that was he going to hand over to me? Let me be charitable, 27 is to it, but that does not make English language. The other thing I want to say is that if I ask how many of you lived with your grandparents, there'll be a lot of silence in this room. Unfortunately, in our culture, if you're old and poor, you're a witch or a wizard. And families today shun the company of grandparents. But that is where the knowledge is. And I would say that good old the name is just gone, who said that you challenge indigenous knowledge at your peril. Indigenous knowledge is knowledge. This is Dr. Okuampofo. Indigenous knowledge is knowledge that has stood the test of time. If you learn from your grandparents, the stories you're told is about heroes and heroines in your culture. That is how you build confidence. You don't build confidence by learning somebody's heroes and heroines. They don't look anything like you. But here we are. Many people never met their grandparents, never shunned their grandparents, never learned the heroes and heroines of their cultures. Many of us have very interesting stories to tell. And yet, in this country, reading is virtually nil. There are university students who are graduating who have never read a book from page 1 to the end, particularly if it is not in their subject area. They all read handouts and notes, and that certainly doesn't make a university graduate. At least in every semester, there should be compulsory reading material. Even in medicine, you must read the history of medicine. You must read pretty much everything. We have little knowledge, we have little language, and therefore a lot of us can't speak. Not surprising, the MC said, you teach and you ask a question and everybody is quiet. If we started a program, and I'm saying that, look, PLO felt that the young people here have got a changed mindset and can change this country. I totally disagree. They have come along the same route that I came through. I'm 71. I can't change my spouse today. Most of you can't change your spouse either. But let's start from early childhood education. And that for me has now become my preoccupation. The brain, by age 2, is mature. What you do is how to wire the brain. And you wire the brain through your senses, through what you see. The child is on the mother's back. They go to the farm. The only colors they see on most of our farms is brown and green. Nothing else. They don't see any other colors. Turquoise. No, nothing excites them. What do they smell? What do they hear? What kind of music do they hear? They're not even playing a match they did to them. Children, the senses virtually are starved of information. And that is the route through the wiring system. So I say that most Ghanaians are single-phase wired. In a house, you can have one-phase wiring or three-phase wiring. Three-phase wiring, if one phase goes off, the others are there. Most Ghanaians are one-phased wired. And therefore, the ability to lateralize and really comprehend what goes on around them is really limited. So we must begin early childhood education. I don't believe that if you taught a child Proverbs at age 2 or age 3, the child will not understand, particularly in the language that is spoken at home. But if you start teaching A is for apple and B is for banana, then you're doing what is called linear teaching. Everybody is a child prodigy, but that have not been exposed. So I want us in this Empowering Minds to say that this is the university from which the change must start. I want to hear University of Education, Winneba, say that up to the age of 8, backed by research, education must be by mother tongue. And by 8, English as a second language should be introduced in class 3, primary 3. That is when English should be. So that immediately that child transfers every word he or she now knows in his native language into English. And within 1 year, the vocabulary of 9-year-old Ghanaians would amaze all of you. Would amaze all of you. Then the next is reading. If people cannot read about people who have been successful in their culture, in their country, and even beyond, they don't build the confidence. And reading is virtually almost taking, imbibing somebody else, knowledge. So if you don't read, you know nothing. In this country, we do not read. It's almost as if you read, you are wasting your time. Because you only need your teacher's notes to pass the exam. But if we made compulsory reading every semester, the amount of knowledge that will be garnered will be very impressive. And therefore, if we're going to shape futures for the 21st century, then I dare all of us that all of us past the age, having entered primary school, we have lost the boat. We have. We are not confident. We are not dignified in ourselves. And that is why corruption is probably the number one thing that happens in this country. Because everybody just wants money. Money is the only currency that an uncultured, an unvalued human being wants. If you value, if you have dignity, if you have confidence, money is not your currency. So we've lost it. But if we've got to regain it, then it starts from the KG and the primary school. How can we do this? Currently, there is a process going on in this country looking at education at all stages. How is UEW positioned to influence what is happening? This is where the whole challenge begins.
Relentless, unfiltered, unstoppable. Oliver Mose Baka-Vamawo, a voice that refuses to be silenced.
Getting into this space, I feel like my soul is restful. And I can't put a price on that.
A lawyer by profession, an activist by conviction.
Yes, about it. Nobody. Nobody's researching. We have several faculties of pharmacy. How many of them are researching into our herbal pharmacopoeia? No. We're training pharmacists to come and count paracetamol. That is not how many years, 4 years, or now 6 years of university education. If they had done research on Philanthus neruli, for example, it is a regular herb in everybody's backyard. It is called abomeguechi. Believe you me, it's a powerful wellness drug. It is described in the literature as stone breaker. So if you use that for green tea, you don't develop kidney stones, you don't develop gallbladder stones. That is, it's a herb. Nobody gives them about it. So there is a lot in our backyard that we don't know. But if you don't know what is in your backyard, how dare you go out of your backyard to go and look for what? Knowledge where? You don't even interact with your grandmother. You don't know what your grandmother knows. And in our typical folklore, we represent the past, today, and the future. That is the African trilogy. We all come from our ancestors, and therefore we pour libation to our ancestors. We don't know what our ancestors knew. We don't. So what do we know today? What have we added to the knowledge passed on by ancestors? And if you don't know what your ancestors knew, what have you added? So what is there for the future population? And that is the reason why today Galamsey is killing us. Because the people of today want all the gold out of Ghana. But people lived in Ghana many years before this current generation. Why did they leave the gold there? Or you think they didn't know there was gold there? They knew. but there was a valued system that we have lost all those values. This morning, the VC said PLO Lumumba had asked the question whether God was a Christian. And I just want to say something. In this country, it was known that on certain days, fishermen don't go to the sea, and on certain days, farmers don't go to the land. It was just one way of allowing regeneration. But when Christians came, they argued that those who had been converted as Christians felt that that day, that is, to allow the land or the sea to regenerate, was paganism. And therefore, they will go. And in every part of the country, the decision by the governor was that that should not be a practice. So you go to the land how many days a week? Maybe apart from the Sabbath, that they might not go, but the Sabbath, traditionalists will go. So there was virtually no day for the land. We have an opportunity. The opportunity is that let us break from our past. It is not a feeble-lettered, little language graduate who is going to change the world. It is a confident, dignified human being with values, who know what the ancestors knew, who is prepared to add on and guarantee the future. That is the confident African that we want to step out to go and compete. But we've lost it. All of us, some of us went out and trained. Of course, in the classroom, if it is knowledge there, we're if not better. But you come back, the system just stifles you. The system has a way of choking you. You cannot bring change. We've been here, all right? We know how the system works, all right? And, you know the terminologies you two know. You think you have come out. Hey, no. This is Ghana. We have got to begin a sea change. And to the Deputy Minister, please take the outcome of this public lecture. I hope that the synopsis will be done as soon as practicable, so that before the committee finishes its work, this can be a contribution from the EUW's public lecture series. That can help reform education. Just last week, Emeritus Professor Kwesi Yankah gave a lecture to memorialize Ekweadonko and his whole philosophy. And I did a full graphic article on Ekweadonko. And I did that to spite educated women in this country. That with all your education, nobody is prepared to stand tall and say that I will fight to become the president of this country. Nobody. You are waiting to be made running mates. No. How many women, Ekweadonko, an illiterate woman who never had the opportunity to go to school? Was that her fault? Was that her fault? No. And yet, she was derided by women just because they didn't have the guts, despite all your education and all your PhDs and all your whatever. And in saying that, Emeritus Kwesi Yankah said, currently everywhere you go, there is simultaneous translation. So why do we empower only people who can speak English into our parliament? And when a member of parliament cannot express him or herself, what happens? Derided. But if there was simultaneous translation, the person will be speaking ever and is being translated into English or Twi or whatever. any international conference, you must have simultaneous translators. We have so many, colleges of languages, and all of them can be trained as translators to work in Parliament, to work in most of our conferences. So this conference, for example, there could be simultaneous translation into Twi, into Ewe, into Ga, for those who are not erudite in the English language. We do damage to ourselves, and somehow we expect that we will progress. Progress is an inclusivity. All right? Robert Dussay said, you people who've gone to school, you think wisdom is in the classroom. No. Wisdom is most certainly not in the classroom. It isn't. That is why we say there's a fie jansan and there's school jansan. In other words, there is sense in the home and there's sense in classroom. And don't think that because somebody hasn't gone to school, that person can get no sense. The person is loaded with wisdom. Are we prepared to learn from them? No, because we're better than them. And that is the reason why we are floundering. And unfortunately, we are retrogressing because we've lost our value system. We are not confident. We are not dignified. We cannot express ourselves very, very well. And if you cannot, everything else stays in your head. We live in a country where dreams do not materialize. You can be an entrepreneur in this country, you will be suffocated. That is the system. They tell us, all of you, you should be creating jobs. Create jobs where? In this country? My God, where is the finance? Where is anything? Where is anything? Nobody is prepared to help anybody. Everybody is prepared to help themselves. And I know Honorable is here, but let me say something. Last Friday, Parliament gave to every parliamentarian 200,000 as Get Fund project and gave them an additional 150,000 to monitor projects. There is nowhere in this world that you are giving 75% of what you are giving to monitor projects. No, nowhere. Parliamentarians all kept quiet. They got the money. They got their ex gratia. They got their car loan. Boom, that's it. These are the people's representatives. And meanwhile, the people are choking to death. The people are choking to death. So please, our representatives, look back. Think about us. Think about us. And let's all together move this country forward. The last thing I want to say is that I believe sincerely, and I'll say it here today, that multi-party democracy has done nothing for this country. Since 1992, the only beneficiaries of the system is the political class. The professional class, the working class, the underclass have all been totally marginalized. It's as if you live in this country, your sense is not respected. But that does not develop a country. We must be prepared to harvest the intellectual might of this country to progress this country. So, ladies and gentlemen, I believe and I share in Pierre Lumumba's statement that the change starts now. The change, let's say the change starts with the new educational system and the relevance of our local language in our educational system. And let me say that let's disabuse our minds that our grandparents are witches and wizards. They gave birth to you, they nurtured you, and today, because you've gone to school, you turn around and say they are witches. What you have lost is what your ancestors knew and your ability to add onto it. That has been one of the tragedies of our modern Ghana. We can correct it, and let's correct it now. I wish you all the best. Thank you.